She saw him, her ex arm in arm with a woman who glittered like she had been handpicked to replace her. Emma's chest squeezed, her grip on the clutch trembling. She could not stand there, exposed beneath his smug, practiced smile. Not tonight, not when every glance from him felt like a blade. So she did the unthinkable. She crossed the marble floor, her heels echoing against the gala's hush, and reached for the first hand she found. It was warm, solid, a stranger's hand. "Please," she whispered. "Just play along." Hazel eyes lifted to hers, steady and calm. "There you are," he said smoothly, his voice quiet steel. "I was beginning to wonder." Her ex faltered. The stranger did not. He threaded their fingers, pressed her knuckles to his lips, and led her away with protective certainty. Emma thought it was survival. She didn't know she had grabbed the hand of a single dad who wouldn't let go. The gala looked like wealth had bottled starlight and poured it into a ballroom. Crystal chandeliers dangled like frozen fireworks, scattering gold across marble floors polished to a mirror. Guests moved like a slow tide, gowns brushing tuxedos, champagne catching candlelight. Waiters flowed with practiced ease, trays of sparkling flutes balanced as if gravity had been suspended. Even the air was curated, perfume layered over wax and roses bred to smell expensive. Emma Clark hovered at the entrance, palms smoothing the navy clearance rack dress she'd convinced herself passed as timeless. Almost anyway. The zipper tugged when she breathed too honestly, and her heels carved reminders into her toes. She wasn't here to dazzle, just to deliver the carefully wrapped gift bag she'd promised, then leave before courage slipped out the door without her. A flute of champagne arrived at her hand by habit of a passing waiter. She took it for camouflage more than thirst. That was the plan, until she saw him. Logan. The name fell into her chest like stone breaking water. First the shock, then the rings of memory spreading outward. Taller than she remembered, or arrogance gave him height. Sleek tuxedo, hair combed like the cover of a magazine, the same slow smile she once mistook for safety. On his arm, a woman in emerald silk glittered under chandeliers, the kind of replacement chosen with precision. Cameras would love them together. They looked inevitable. Logan spotted her almost immediately. His smile curved, practiced, polished, cutting straight through her like glass. He tipped his chin just enough. He was coming. Emma's lungs abandoned her. The room compressed, air turning heavy. She saw it all before it landed. His greeting, Emma, spoken like an indulgence, his eyes flicking down her clearance dress. The diamond on the fiancé's hand lifted with polite superiority. Humiliation draped in silk, delivered with grace. Her pulse begged for escape. Behind her a floral arrangement large enough to hide behind. Ahead the marble sea where Logan advanced with inevitability. Seconds folded in on themselves, collapsing options. That's when her gaze caught him. A man stood near the staircase, tall, composed, not performing for anyone. Charcoal suit that fit like it belonged to him, not the other way around. Tousled hair fighting polish. He read something on his phone with the quiet focus of someone who didn't need the room's permission to exist. There was no audience in his posture, no reach for applause, just a steadiness she wanted to borrow. Instinct moved her before thought caught up. She set her untouched champagne onto a passing tray and crossed the floor like a tightrope she'd rehearsed in dreams. Her hand reached before her mind could scold. Warm skin meeting warm skin. His hand larger, steady, calloused in ways that told a different story than this ballroom. "Please," she whispered, breath trembling. "Just play along." The man lifted his gaze. Hazel eyes, flecked with green like leaves caught in sunlight. Surprise flickered, then steadiness overtook it, as natural as breathing. Behind her Logan's voice unfurled, smooth and smug. "Emma." The stranger's fingers shifted, weaving through hers like they belonged there, not borrowed. He didn't even glance at Logan. His attention held only Emma as he said, warmly, with perfect certainty, "There you are." I was beginning to wonder. His thumb brushed once against her hand, grounding her, and the room's tilt corrected. Logan arrived with that untouchable glide, emerald silk trailing at his side. "Emma," he said, voice rich with performance. "What a surprise." Emma's spine stiffened. Logan, his eyes dropped to her hand, joined firmly with the stranger's. Calculations flickered in the gleam of his teeth. "And this is..." The stranger didn't flinch. "Daniel," he said smoothly, name spoken like a fact the room should already know. "Her partner." The word struck deeper than Emma expected, brushing something raw inside her. It suggested history they hadn't lived, a future she hadn't dared to picture. Yet somehow it steadied her. Logan's fiancée smiled with the kind of grace that cuts. "Lovely to meet you," she said. "Already finished meeting." Daniel lifted Emma's hand and brushed his lips across her knuckles. It wasn't a flourish, not possession. Just a quiet, protective tenderness, like a man who'd learned the weight of reassurance not from charm but from holding smaller hands that needed it. "Shall we get some air?" he murmured for Emma alone. "Yes," she said, the word breaking like a lifeline. Logan's smile thinned. "Enjoy your evening." They already were. Daniel guided Emma through the ballroom, not steering, not claiming, simply moving with an ease that made people unconsciously give way. The current of tuxedos and gowns parted around them. He led her toward the terrace doors, cool night air spilling like relief over her skin when they stepped outside. Only then did Emma realize she was still holding his hand, gripping it like a lifeline. She loosened, embarrassed. He didn't let go right away. "I'm sorry," she blurted, the words tumbling with her breath. I shouldn't have. That was effective, he said gently, corners of his mouth softening. And well executed. A laugh caught in her throat, shaky, unexpected. I didn't give you much of a choice. You gave me one, he replied. I took it. Why? She asked, startled at her own question. He looked out over the city, windows glowing like scattered stars, then back at her. Because you looked like someone who needed to hold on, and I had a hand. Something unclenched inside her ribcage. The part of her that usually apologized for existing went silent. I'm Emma, she said finally, manners surfacing as the panic ebbed. Thank you for whatever that was. Daniel, he said again, with no hesitation. And you're welcome. Her eyes traced him now with new clarity. Early 30s, hair imperfect in a way that resisted polish, a suit that didn't brag but held substance, a watch worn from use, not for show, not the glossy kind of handsome, the kind that carried stories in the lines of his face, a steadiness that felt earned. You're very good at pretending, she said with a tilt. I wasn't pretending, he answered softly. Improvising, maybe, but it was real enough. From inside, a trumpet stumbled into jazz. A couple stepped onto the terrace, paused, then slipped back in, sensing weight in the air. Emma's shoulders softened, her hand still in his, and somewhere in the quiet between them, she realized she'd grabbed not just a stranger's hand, she'd grabbed the hand of a man who knew what it meant to hold on, because he'd learned to never let go. The terrace doors sighed shut behind them, muffling the gala's polished laughter. Out here the city breathed different air. Amber lights stretched across the skyline, windows stacked like stories mid-sentence. The night carried honesty the ballroom never allowed. Emma realized her hand was still wrapped in his. She eased her fingers apart, pulse clumsy with nerves. He let her go slowly, as if loosening a knot without breaking the cord. I didn't catch your last name, she said, half apology, half invitation. He smiled faintly. Hale, Daniel Hale. It fit, not ostentatious, not a brand, solid. Emma Clark, she offered, as if her name could steady her voice. Nice to meet you properly, Emma Clark, he said, and the way he said it, like her name had weight, made her feel less like a mistake in borrowed heels. From inside, jazz bled through the glass. A trumpet missed its note and laughed at itself. Emma found herself smiling too. You saved me in there, she said. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the ballroom, then back to her. Looked like you didn't need saving. Just a hand, she exhaled, breath catching on the edges of honesty. My ex, Logan. He never misses a chance to remind me what I lost. Daniel's gaze stayed steady, not prying, not pitying. Sometimes people like that don't remind you what you lost, he said quietly. They remind you what you're better without. The words landed with unexpected weight. She glanced away, blinking against the sudden heat behind her eyes. He didn't press. Can I buy you a drink? He asked, gentler now. Consider it hazard pay. Emma laughed, startled by the phrase. Hazard pay. You grabbed my hand and pulled me into enemy territory without a briefing, he said, his mouth tilting into a smile. That qualifies. The laugh lingered this time. One drink, she agreed. He held the door open for her, the smallest courtesy delivered without flourish. They moved through the ballroom like conspirators, his calm presence bending the current around them. People shifted instinctively, granting space they didn't realize they were giving. A stairwell near the rosemary planters led them up to the rooftop lounge. The air changed the moment they stepped in. Warm amber light, soft jazz that apologized less, the city sprawling below like a patient witness. A host looked up, recognition flickering. Your usual table, Mr. Hale? Emma blinked. Usual, but before curiosity sharpened into doubt, Daniel shook his head. Something by the edge. For two, they settled at a small round table where the railing framed the skyline like a painting. A candle burned low, steady as breath. What do you drink? He asked. Emma hesitated, then confessed. Something citrus, but soft, nothing bitter. Daniel nodded to the server. A yuzu spritz, light on the bitter, and an iced rye, single cube. The server nodded like she'd already memorized his script. Emma smoothed the napkin in her lap, searching for composure. The wind teased a strand of hair across her cheek. She tucked it back, and caught him watching. Not appraising, just seeing. Tell me something true, he said. She blinked. About what? Anything. Dealer's choice. Her instinct reached for safe answers. Popcorn oversalted, tears at dog commercials, the usual trivia. But her mouth betrayed her. I don't belong in rooms like that, she said softly. Not the way people in them do. He didn't rush to contradict her with empty comfort. He let the words breathe before replying. Maybe you just haven't found the room that was built for you. Emma laughed, brittle. They don't build rooms for people like me. What does that mean? People like you. People still figuring it out, she admitted. Resumes that change depending on whether rent's due. Freelance anything. And when it isn't due. Her voice softened. I restore photographs, for families. I make dust and fingerprints look deliberate, like time meant to leave them there. Something in Daniel's expression shifted. A gentleness sharpened into focus. So you bring the past back to life. I give it permission to be forgiven, she murmured. He watched her as though cataloging the way relief looked on her face. Before she could shrink under it, the drinks arrived. She lifted the spritz, tasted citrus and light bubbles. Her shoulders released a fraction. Your turn, she said. Something true. He considered. I'm excellent at disappearing in rooms where everyone knows my name. That sounds backward. It is, he admitted, but sometimes useful. For who? For everyone who expects me to be something I'm not. Her brow tilted. So what are you then? His gaze rested on the city, then back on her. A man who tries to keep promises, even when life makes them hard to keep. There was something in his tone, a thread tugging at a story she hadn't asked yet. A glimpse of fatherhood unspoken. The way he spoke of promises like he'd made them to someone small who trusted too much. Emma studied him quietly. He wore calm the way others wore armor, but not impenetrable. More like a shield carried for someone else's sake. Why did you really do it? She asked. Back there. Pretend to be mine. Daniel's lips curved. Thoughtful. Because you looked like you needed someone to hold on. And I've learned some hands are too important to let go. The answer trembled between them. Almost too much. Almost enough. A couple passed, glancing at them like they recognized him. Daniel didn't flinch, didn't explain. He just held her gaze steady until the moment thinned into silence. They sat with their drinks, city wind brushing past, candle flickering between them. The kind of quiet that wasn't empty but waiting. Emma realized, with a shiver she couldn't name, that when she reached for a stranger's hand tonight, she hadn't just borrowed safety. She had found a man whose entire life was proof that once he held on, he never let go. The bakery sat on the corner like a secret the city had forgotten to hide. Fogged windows glowed soft. Chalkboard specials curled with messy handwriting. Inside, couples leaned close. Solitary readers stirred coffee. A boy in a soccer jersey stared at cake as if it held a wish. Emma chose the table by the window, the one that watched the street like a page waiting for words. She traced the rim of her teacup, telling herself he might not come, but she'd imagined the promise written in her palm 3 nights ago. Then the bell above the door chimed, and the air shifted. Daniel crossed the street in a dark coat, casual this time, but still carrying that quiet authority that made people instinctively step aside. He spotted her immediately, and the faintest smile tilted his mouth, like he'd been waiting for this exact chair, this exact moment. Pie salvation, he said as he sat across from her. Sacred ritual, Emma replied, surprising herself. Always apple, he ordered without hesitation. 2 apple. Coffee for me. Tea for her. Black. No milk. The woman behind the counter nodded knowingly, as if she'd already written it down. Emma raised a brow. You memorized my tea order. I pay attention, he said simply. Their slices arrived warm, crumble tops cracking under forks. Cinnamon climbed the air, sugar hiding like secrets in every bite. They ate in companionable silence until silence turned comfortable, then into confession. Emma told him about restoring a sailor's photograph, the creases smoothed like the granddaughter's grief. It wasn't just a picture, she said softly. It was proof the past hadn't been careless with her. Daniel listened with the attentiveness of someone who understood weight. That's more than fixing an image. That's giving people a second chance to remember. His words curled through her, anchoring something she hadn't named. And you? She asked, curious. What do you fix? He leaned back, smile faint. Leaky faucets, broken hinges, science projects gone wrong, mostly Lego castles that refused to stay upright. Emma blinked, caught off guard. You're a handyman? Single dad, he corrected gently. You learn quick when there's a kid depending on you. Every problem is fixable, if you're stubborn enough. Something in her chest softened. He didn't say it like a boast, more like survival. Boy or girl? She asked carefully. Girl, he said. 8. Smarter than me. Funnier than me. Folds paper cranes every morning like it's a ritual. Ties a red thread around my wrist before I leave the apartment. Says it helps me breathe slower when life gets scary. Emma stilled, fork hovering. The detail threaded through her with a quiet ache. This wasn't just a man who'd rescued her from a ballroom. This was a father who'd been carrying the world in both hands long before she stumbled into his. You don't sound like someone who disappears in rooms, she said softly. I don't, he admitted. Not when it's just me. But when you've got someone looking up at you every day, expecting you to be steady, you learn to wear calm like armor. The bakery hummed around them, ordinary in the way extraordinary moments hide. Do you come here often? She asked. Enough that they stop offering me a menu, he said. Sometimes I bring her here after school. Pie is our truce after long days. Emma smiled at the picture forming in her head. A little girl with folded paper cranes, cinnamon sugar on her fingers, her dad across the table steadying her world with pie and laughter. They finished their slices, walked outside into the cool dusk. Daniel shrugged off his coat when she shivered and placed it around her shoulders. She started to protest. He refused with a look that ended the discussion. They stopped at a bookstore window, lamps glowing like patient moons inside. A boy sat cross-legged on the floor, reading aloud to a girl leaning against the poetry shelf. Emma felt her throat catch. This one, she whispered. Daniel nodded like he'd known before she said it. Of course it is. They stood together in the glow of strangers being gentle, as if trespassing on something holy. Sometimes, Emma said, her voice almost breaking, I think I should have been someone who belongs in places like this, just sits and breathes, and belongs. You already are, Daniel said. You don't know me, she whispered. I know what it looks like to need a place to set yourself down, he said quietly. Even if you only rest there a while. Her breath hitched. And where do you set yours down? He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the window, then back at her. Wherever she is. My daughter. She's home, no matter the room. Emma turned her gaze away quickly, afraid of what her heart was doing. afraid it was learning something new. Not all strength was loud. Some of it looked like fathers who made promises and kept them. They walked until the coat smelled like sandalwood, and the night smelled like belonging. At her building, he waited until the lock clicked before he turned away. She climbed the stairs, feeling her pulse press against her ribs like it wanted to write itself on the walls. She leaned against her door, whispering to the silence, "I'm falling." The fundraiser echoed with clinking glasses and the soft rustle of silk. Emma hadn't wanted to come, but her friend Olivia insisted. "Wear the green dress. Trust me, you need a night out." So she did. She told herself it was just art and champagne, just a room full of strangers. But when she stepped under the vaulted ceiling, laughter rippling against marble, she saw him. Daniel. He wore black tie tonight, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the crowd with practiced calm. And yet within seconds, people orbited him. Firm handshakes, polite laughter, women leaning in with too much perfume. Emma froze. He hadn't told her he would be here. He hadn't told her he belonged here. Not in the quiet way she'd grown used to, but in the center. Someone beside her whispered, "That's Hale. Runs half the safety audits in the city. Single dad who still shows up at PTA meetings. Guy's basically a miracle." The words landed like stones in Emma's chest. A miracle. A world she couldn't possibly measure up to. Daniel turned, caught her across the room. For a heartbeat, his mask slipped, warmth flickering, a softness just for her. He excused himself and crossed the crowd. "Emma," he said, quieter now. "You came. You didn't tell me this was your world," she whispered back. His jaw tightened. "It's not my world. It's what I do. The world is her. My daughter. Everything else is just a job." Emma looked around at sequins and champagne, at people who seemed born to stand under chandeliers. "And what am I supposed to be here? The charity case? The woman they wonder about when they see you holding my hand?" "Emma, no," she said quickly before her voice broke. "I can't be that. I can't stand in another room where I don't belong and feel them all measure me, waiting for me to come up short." His hand twitched, wanting to reach hers. "Do you think I care what they measure?" "You will," she whispered. "Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but someday." Before he could stop her, she stepped back. The crowd swallowed her, sequins glittering like barriers. For days, silence lived between them. Emma buried herself in her work, restoring photographs until her eyes blurred. But when she looked up, the quiet filled the apartment like water. On the fourth day, her phone buzzed. A message. From him. "I'm sorry. I should have told you everything. I'm not asking you to step into my world. I'm asking if I can keep stepping into yours." She typed. Erased. Typed again. Finally. "I don't know if I can do this. I'm not like the women in your world." His reply came almost instantly. "That's exactly why I can't let go." Emma closed her eyes, let the words echo until they softened the edges of her fear. The next morning, he asked her to meet him. A small courtyard off Maple, noon. She almost didn't go. But when she arrived, he was there, sitting on a bench under a maple tree that had turned fire red. No tuxedo, just rolled sleeves, eyes weary but open. He stood the moment he saw her. "I'm not asking you to raise my daughter, or to carry my weight," he said, voice steady. "I'm asking if I can keep showing up. In the rooms that feel like yours. In the places where you breathe easier. With pie. With windows. With whatever's true for you. That's where I want to be." Emma looked at him, at the man who had let her borrow strength in a ballroom, who carried fatherhood, like both anchor and compass. She thought of the paper cranes his daughter folded, of the red thread tied around his wrist, a reminder to breathe slow, a reminder to never let go. Her throat ached. "What if I break something? Then we fix it," he said simply. "That's what I do. That's what we do." She exhaled, long and shaky, and sat beside him. For a moment neither spoke. Children chased pigeons. An old man read the sports page with glasses perched on his head. Ordinary life spun around them, and somehow it was enough. Finally, Emma whispered, "I grabbed your hand that night because I needed safety, but I think what I found was home." Daniel's eyes softened. He reached for her hand, not with urgency, but with the patience of a man who knew the value of steady promises. "Then don't let go." She looked down at their joined hands, at his thumb brushing gently across hers, the same gesture that had steadied her under chandeliers, that had pulled her out of humiliation and into belonging. And this time she wasn't trembling when she answered, "I'm not planning to." The maple tree shifted, scattering red leaves across their shoulders like blessings. Emma realized that sometimes the miracles weren't in the rooms you thought you'd never belong to. Sometimes they were in the steady hand of a single dad who had already learned that once he held on, he never let go. Conclusion. She poured herself into work, restoring photographs until her eyes blurred. But at night, the silence filled the room like water. One evening she found an envelope slipped under her door. No note, just a single photograph inside. Her grandmother's wedding picture restored. The crease smoothed, the colors warmed, the smile alive again on the back in neat handwriting. Sometimes imperfections are waiting for someone brave enough to see past them. Tears blurred the print. She pressed the photo to her chest, shaking. But she didn't call him. Not yet, because the voice inside her still whispered, "You'll never belong in his world." 2 weeks later, Olivia dragged her to a small art gallery on Maple Street. Emma went only because she was tired of her own silence. The gallery was intimate. Brick walls, string lights, canvases hung close like secrets. At the center of the room stood a display table stacked with old photographs, restored and framed with care. Emma's breath caught. They were hers, every photograph she had ever worked on, every piece she thought the world had no space for, displayed like treasures. Beside the display, a small card read, "Cured by Emma Clark." She turned sharply. Daniel stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, watching her, not with triumph, but with quiet hope. "You did this," she whispered. "I only rented the room," he said softly. "The work is yours. The credit is yours." She shook her head, tears spilling. "Why?" "Because you think you don't belong in rooms like mine," he said. "So I built one that belongs to you." The words shattered something in her, not with pain but release. All the doubts, all the whispers that said she wasn't enough. They fell away under the weight of his truth. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "When I grabbed your hand that night, I thought I was just escaping." Daniel's gaze held hers. "Maybe you were finding where you were meant to be." Her chest ached with the force of it, the possibility, the risk, the hope. Slowly she slid her hand into his again, the way she had that first night. Only this time, she wasn't trembling. This time she said softly, "I'm not letting go." His fingers closed around hers, steady and sure, and for the first time in years, Emma believed she hadn't grabbed the wrong hand. Emma poured herself into work, scanning old photographs until the hum of her lamp drowned out the world. But silence had a way of filling the apartment at night, pressing into the spaces she tried not to name. One evening, an envelope slid under her door. No note, just a single photograph inside, her grandmother's wedding picture, perfectly restored. The crease gone, the colors softened, the smile alive again. On the back, neat handwriting. "Some imperfections are just waiting for someone brave enough to see past them." Tears blurred the print. She pressed it to her chest, shaking, but she didn't call him. Not yet. Doubt still whispered, "You'll never belong in his world." 2 weeks later, Olivia dragged her to a small community gallery. Emma went because she was tired of her own silence. Inside, brick walls held frames close together. String lights cast shadows like quiet promises. At the center, a table stacked with restored photographs. Her work, every piece she thought didn't matter, displayed like treasure. A card read, "Restored by Emma Clark." Emma spun. Daniel stood nearby, hands in his pockets, not triumphant but hopeful. "You did this," she whispered. "I only rented the room," he said softly. "The work is yours. The credit is yours." "Why?" "Because you think you don't belong in rooms like mine," he said, voice steady. "So I built one that belongs to you, one my daughter would be proud to stand in too." Her chest broke open, not with pain, with release. "When I grabbed your hand that night," she said, trembling, "I thought I was just escaping." Daniel's gaze held hers. "Maybe you were finding where you were meant to be." Her throat ached. Slowly she slid her hand into his again, the way she had that first night. Only this time, she wasn't trembling. This time, she whispered, "I'm not letting go." His fingers closed around hers, steady as a promise, and for the first time in years, Emma believed it. She hadn't grabbed the wrong hand. She'd grabbed the hand of a single dad, who knew exactly how to hold on.